Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
Hey, everybody, what's going on? This is your man, Big B, Brien Hanley, and welcome to Big 12 Insiders. Today, we are talking a little bit of Utah football. We've got Sammy Mora, who covers the Utah Utes for 24/7 Sports. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the world of Utah, what's going on with their season, about the last previous game that they had, and moving forward. So first, before we get into all of that, remember to like, follow, subscribe, continue to leave those comments, and hit the notification bell so you know exactly when Big 12 Insiders content comes out. First things first, Sammy, how are you doing? And thank you for joining the program today.
I'm doing good. It's been a rough last little bit for Utah up on the hill, but I'm excited. I told you before we started recording that I love talking ball, but I especially love talking Utah football. So I'm excited to be here and excited to talk about the Utes a little bit.
Gotcha. Well, I had a bunch of stuff that I had panned out to talk about, but I guess I'm not doing my job if I don't ask the first big question. Cam Rising, Utah comes out with the statement last night. Cam Rising is going to be out for the season, which is heartbreaking, unfortunate. Whatever you want to use, superlative that you want to throw out there is fine. It's crazy that happened. Literally the first drive, and he gets hurt. It was unbelievable. And he was not right the rest of the game. I don't even know, Sammy, if you would say he was 50%. I don't even think he was the rest of the game, man. It just terrible news.
Yeah, it sucks, and like everyone knows Cam's injury history, especially the last few years with the knee injury. He had a concussion that knocked him out of the Rose Bowl versus Ohio State. But one injury that people seem to tend to forget about with him is he messed up his shoulder the first play of the 2020 season. He was Utah's starting quarterback heading into that 2020 season, and he got crunched by a couple of USC defenders and messed up his shoulder, and that's another injury to add to the list. But yeah, it was hard to watch, especially knowing what he's gone through and his injury history and stuff like that. But Cam's a strong guy, and as a person, he's one of my favorite Utah football players that I've ever got to work with. But yeah, I would say he was probably like I would agree, he was less than 50% for the rest of the game. You kind of get a little bit of hope when Utah goes for that touchdown drive towards the end of the game, but then defense can't get a stop. It just kind of unravels from there. But it's truly heartbreaking. Like, Cam has done so much for this program, and he took this program to new heights. So for the fact that his career had to end this way, possibly, is just it doesn't feel right.
Right.
Utah fans all expected Cam Rising, his final year, to lead Utah to the promised land, so to speak, of making that the Big 12 championship game and making the college football playoff. And for those dreams to kind of come crashing down because of an injury of this severity it's hard to swallow. There was a lot of guys that came back because of Cam and because of what the possibility this team had. But, sometimes that's just how stories are written, and that it sucks that this is how Cam's was written.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, and I've said this forever, is that football is a tough sport, but injuries are part of it. Unfortunately, and I say this all the time, bones break and ligaments tear. So there's just nothing that you can do about it. So on another note, there's obviously, and again, I don't know how much of this is hyperbole and how much is true. There's talk about him possibly talking about coming back for an 8th year. I guess the question, and some people have asked me, and I'll just ask this, is that sometimes your body will tell you, and sometimes it's time to just say, you know what, enough's enough. And your body is kind of telling you, hey, man, football just isn't in the cards for you anymore. You're tough, you're gritty, but I'm not built for this. And it doesn't mean that he's mentally not built for it, but sometimes your body just says, hey, football is not it. Mm-hmm. Any chance of him coming back? I know it might be way too fresh and all that. Was there any even real chance of him coming back for an 8th year?
I think it's still way too early to even make that. The
Right.
injury is like less than a week out. I wouldn't be shocked if those conversations start happening middle of November, just because Utah needs to plan for the future and stuff. Like,
Right.
obviously, like, you have Isaac Wilson who's going to be starting for the rest of the season, but you need to know, like, what is the Utah quarterback room gonna look like next year? That's what you need to do because, in this era with the transfer portal, like, Utah's not afraid to go out there and get somebody if they need. Like, I think those conversations probably will start happening in the next couple of weeks into, like, November, I would say. Um, I wouldn't be shocked to see if we have a decision before Christmas on
Gotcha.
what the status is gonna be, especially because Utah likes to go hard in the portal, and they like to get in there fast, and they like
Right.
to get in there fast, and so, um, yeah, I think it's still way too early, at least from my vantage point, to know what the situation's gonna be, so we'll see.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so
No, I understand. Let's take a step away from that and let's talk about some football related. I guess it's all football related stuff, but you know, tough game on Friday night.
Mhm.
Crazy atmosphere at Arizona State. I had mentioned talk last week is one of the biggest games that they've had there for a while, just because of what that program has been through. Um, in Utah, I mean, they were there, they were in the game, but they could just never get the stop. You mentioned it earlier. They could never get the stop and get over the hump to be able to put real game pressure. I mean, again, the game was close, but they just couldn't get that stop to be able to say, you know what, now you got to go take the lead back from us or
Mhm.
anything like that. I imagine for Utah fans and players, that was probably the most frustrating part because Utah's defense has been pretty good all season.
Yeah, the thing is Kyle Whittingham said Monday at his press conference that Utah missed 19 tackles on defense, and that's something that was an issue versus Arizona before the bye, was missed tackles again. There was a lot of, at least from, like, my vantage point and rewatching the game, is there was a lot of Utah players that were overrunning plays. They were going too hard, too fast, and they just were overrunning Cam Scattaboo, and they were outrunning a couple other guys. And you can't be competitive no matter how good your defense is playing. You can't do anything if you're missing 19 tackles in a game.
Correct.
On both of Scattaboo's big runs, I think, in from at least my count, I think they missed at least 4 or 5 tackles.
Yeah.
Um, and Utah's defense has been very good at stopping the run, but, credit to I keep calling him Scam Cataboo because it's just so similar. But credit to Scatterbo because he's a hard back to bring down. He is a
Yeah.
big physical guy, and it's hard for people to bring him down. And so, like, Utah's gonna get back to the drawing board. They're gonna get back to figuring out getting those things resolved because everyone knows that Utah's defense is a tough, hard-nosed defense that hits you hard and hits you frequently.
Mhm.
And, like, today's Tuesday, but we haven't talked to any of the defensive players yet. We'll get to talk to them tonight. And so it's going to be interesting to see what they say in terms of that, because leading up to this game, they were all like, "Oh yeah, we spent the entire bye week working on tackling and working on making sure we were assignment sound." And, like, I think they just got ahead of themselves a little bit, and were just like, especially Lander Barton, he overran quite a few plays on Friday night, and it was kind of like he could have had a couple of sacks, he could have had a couple of TFLs and stuff, but he just overran the play and just, like, couldn't bring anybody down.
Right. Sometimes, you get amped up and, you're going too fast
Mhm.
for what your mind is telling you what to do. It happens, because you're from what happened the week before against Arizona. It's like, okay, I'm not going to let this happen again. And you get so amped up in your mind that your body outruns what it should actually be doing. I've seen
Yep.
it happen a million times, being a part of football and watching football for 35 plus years. It's crazy how that happens.
Yeah.
Um, Kyle Whittingham, I also heard, in his press conference, he talked about the passing game, that the passing game just hasn't been good this season. Isaac Wilson's been a huge part of that. Now he's got to go forward. He did mention, Whittingham mentioned that the coaching has to be better so that everything else, on the offense has been pretty good, but they got to get the passing game going. What are some of the things that they're going to try to do to help Wilson be better? Obviously, running the football is going to help, but there's going to be times where he's just got to drop back and throw it. what are some of the things that they're going to try to do to help him be better?
Well, and we got a chance to speak with offensive coordinator Andy Ludwig last night, and Ludwig did mention that there's quite a few things that they're going to be putting in place, because also opposing defenses have been sending all like the house at Isaac
Right.
because they know his youth and they know that he's a true freshman and all these things. And Ludwig did say that Utah's going to start going back to traditional Utah football, which is an extra tight end, play action, leaning on that run a little bit to open things up in the passing game. And I think those are all going to be key things for Utah. You know, Mekhi Bernard has been playing out of his mind at the running back position. He was the offense for Utah on Friday night. And I've said this before, like multiple times, is Isaac has had some games where he has looked like a true veteran. The biggest of which for me was the Oklahoma State game. He looked like he had been playing for years on end. But then the following week against Arizona, outside of probably the first 2 drives, he truly looks like a true freshman, and he's making true freshman mistakes. But I think now the stress, not the stress, I don't want to say stress, the uncertainty of who's going to be playing and who's not going to be playing at quarterback, I think is going to make this a lot easier for Isaac, because now he is the guy. He knows he's the guy. It's not him taking half of the first team snaps and then Cam taking the other half of the first team snaps. And then you don't know until game time who's playing. Mekhi Bernard said that the team was running with 2 game plans up until this point in the season, because they didn't know if Cam was going to be playing or if Isaac was going to be playing. So now that it is a offense that will be tailored to Wilson's needs and his skills, I think that the passing game is going to open up. You know, Utah has a very, very, very good group of talented pass catchers. You know, Brant Keithy's one of the biggest ones. Dorian Singer has been playing extremely well the last few weeks. Money Parks has been playing well. Utah has a very, very, very deep tight end room from top to bottom, including Keithy. There's a lot of weapons around Isaac, and a lot of veteran weapons that can make his life a lot easier. You've seen in the Oklahoma State game that Isaac was leaning on Singer a lot. Singer was coming back to the ball, making catches, getting yards after catch, just making it easier for Isaac in those situations. And I wouldn't be shocked to see those veteran guys take that step again to help him and to rally behind him and help this team finally get back to kind of what the expectation was this season, that Utah's offense was going to be very good. But none of that is going to matter if Utah can't score in the red zone, which has been a very, very, very bad issue for the last 4 weeks. You know, thankfully Utah took some field goals on Friday, which they did not do against Arizona. They went for it on every single 4th down, basically, in the Arizona game. They at least took field goals on Friday, which, you know, those are Whit refers to those as consolation prizes. You know, you don't want them, but you take it. And those field goals kept Utah in the game for as long as they possibly could versus Arizona State. And so none of the passing, Utah is very good at moving the ball outside of the red zone. Like, they are so efficient, they are so good, but when they get inside that 20, nothing starts working. And I don't know if it's partially play calling from Andy Ludwig. He's had some very head scratching moments, like calling a wildcat for Brant Keithy on the 12-yard line. Like there's some head scratchers going on, but you know, now that I think that there is that stability in the quarterback room, knowing that Isaac is going to be the guy who plays, I think that we start to see the tides turn.
Right. Well, one of the things is that you got to trust him. You know, if you're not going to trust him, that's a whole nother issue in itself. And now that you know that he's going to be the guy, maybe you got to open some other things up for him. Flipping to this week, you know, TCU has had their own struggles that we've seen themselves. But one thing that they do pretty consistently is move the football through the air. They've been one of the better teams moving the football this season. They score points. They bring some challenges. Again, we talked about Utah's defense, but Utah's defense has been necessarily stopping teams that have been running the ball. Even Arizona, when you think about, you know, how they want to move the football, it's through the air, but they ran it against Utah. TCU, I don't know that they're necessarily going to do that. They throw the football. Josh Hoover's throws for a ton of yards. He's pretty accurate. What are some things or maybe some plans, and I know maybe you haven't talked to them yet, but some things that they're going to try to do to slow down this TCU offense?
I think the biggest thing is going to be Utah's pass rush. Utah's defensive end room was heading into the season was probably one of the deepest positions Utah went. Kyle Whittingham and other members of the staff said they could go 6 to 8 deep in that position, but then Connor O'Toole, who is one of the leaders of this team, gets hurt. You kind of fall back a little bit. Logan Fano has been playing, but he tore his ACL last year, so he's been on a snap count. And then you have Van Fillinger, who was playing hurt last year and is finally 100% healthy. Who he led the nation in sacks for about 3 weeks, but he's had kind of a little bit of a dip the last few weeks. I think it starts with them, but the thing is all of Utah's pass rush guys, like their defensive ends, all can do vastly different things. Connor, if he returns this week, Connor is a long, fast guy. He was recruited to play tight end at Utah, but the defensive staff said we can see something. We see a great pass rusher in him, and so he made the move to defensive end, and the rest is history. But Van Fillinger, he is a big, big guy. He will bull rush you, and he has made some offensive linemen just like fall over, basically.
Right.
And then Logan Fano, like Logan's a nice hybrid of the two of them. Like he is fast, but he also will bull rush you. So I think getting those guys on the defensive end going first, I think is going to be first and foremost like the best thing Utah can do. I think Utah at home, when they have the 55,000 fans that they have, that's always like an added defensive
Sure.
player in my mentality. It gets right. If you've never been to Rice Eccles Stadium, it gets loud in there, especially since they've closed the south end zone the last few years. That sound stays in there. It gets loud. Like it gets to the point where 2 years ago, when the Utah USC game where Caleb Williams, where Cam had that game winning 2-point conversion, the press box was literally shaking. Like we were up in the press box because of how truly loud it gets in there. And so, like, I think that having the crowd is going to be a benefit for them because as much as teams say they can prepare for a hostile environment, you can only prepare so much until you actually get into that environment. Utah's going to need the linebackers to step up. Utah's linebackers have been kind of MIA majority of the season. I mentioned Lander Barton earlier. With Karene Reed going down with an injury earlier in the season, Lander has been asked to step up a lot more in the linebacker room, and he's had some moments, but also had some really bad moments. They've had to lean on younger guys like John O'Hall and Trey Reynolds and Sione Fotu when he's healthy. You need the linebackers to have a good game. I'm not saying you blitz them on every single play, but maybe throw a linebacker blitz at some point. Utah's Morgan Scalley is very, very, very good at disguising his blitz and disguising his stunts and stuff like that. And so I think getting them going, getting the pass rush going is going to be key in this game, because if Utah can get Hoover on his back, I think that it's a completely different game, because TCU doesn't really have a run game.
No.
And so if they can't throw the ball and they can't run the ball, that should bode well for Utah's defense.
Absolutely. Let me get you out of here on this one, Sammy. Coming into the season, now again, the season's not over. This conference is crazy. A lot can happen. I understand they have 2 losses, but there's still a lot of football left for everybody, not just Utah. So a lot of things can happen, and usually does in this conference. I know Utah's new to this, but this conference, it has not been decided by any means.
Hey, Utah's used to it. They played in the Pac-12 where everyone ate themselves up. Like
Exactly.
you would just
Get it.
Yeah, we're Utah fans are used to this. So
gotcha. So how is the overall program now? Just okay. We lost our quarterback. The season up to this point isn't necessarily going the way that we thought. Just how is the overall feeling of the program from coaches, fans, players? How are the Utah Utes doing as a whole?
I think talking to the offensive players that we had that were available to us on Monday, there was a players only meeting on Monday. So there was talk about, okay, like now that we know that Isaac is the guy, we need to rally and we need to do this. And the thing is Utah's been in this position before where they've lost 2 games, but then they've went on to roll. the rest of the season. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen. There's a lot of factors that need to be resolved. Like red zone offense and tackling are two of the biggest things that need to be resolved ASAP, or else Utah has no chance. Utah's the type of team that really thrives in the underdog mentality. They always have, and I think that backs against the wall is when Utah is one of their best. And I think fans are very upset and very sad about losing Cam, but a lot of fans are ready to see what Isaac can do and what the future of this program holds. Because, if Isaac comes out and kills it the rest of the season, you have to assume that he's QB1 heading into next season. And so I think that's a big thing for them, is just rallying behind Isaac. I think that's what a lot of the team and fans and everyone is doing now is, okay, Isaac's the guy. We need to support him and we need to show him the love and everything that he needs so that this team can be successful, because this team still has the potential, like you said, to be very successful. 6 games, the month of October is pretty, in my opinion, pretty favorable for Utah. You have TCU, you have Houston, and then you I'm completely blanking on the last one. Well, yeah, basically you just have TCU and Houston left this month. Those are 2 winnable games for Utah. And then after Houston, you go on bye. You have a week to get things together before you have the Holy War, before you take on BYU at home. But, if you can get out of October as healthy as possible and with 2 wins, I think that's a great position for Utah to be in heading into November, because Utah's November stretch is very difficult, in my opinion. You have BYU, Colorado, Iowa State, and UCF. Like, that is a tough stretch to end the season. So I think that, the morale is like they no one likes losing, and that's like common sense. And so I think that they're now in the position where they're like, okay, we've lost 2 games in a row. Like, we need to right this ship and we need to finish the season out strong, not only for ourselves, but also for the fans and for everyone who has put time and effort and love into this team. And there's a lot of guys, like I said earlier, there's a lot of guys who came back for one final season for Utah. None of them want to finish the season with a losing record. None of them want to do that. They all want to win as many games as possible. So I think Saturday is going to be a huge vibe check. I love to talk about vibes and stuff over on Ute Zone, the vibes and everything. And I think that this is going to be a vibe check for this week for this team, is to see if truly they are ready to right the ship, or if this season is basically like, kind of done. I hate saying that with 6 games left to play, but there's always going to be a backbreaker. And if TCU is the game that breaks the team's back, then, we over on Ute Zone like to say team fun. Then it's team fun for the rest of the way. Just enjoy the ride, enjoy watching some of these football players who have given Utah so much throughout the years, and just enjoy football. It doesn't need to be life and death for fans. You can just enjoy the game, Right. And so I think that that's where the team's at right now. So, well, I'll get more of a feel when we talk to the defensive players today, but as of right now with the offense, they're ready to just put 100% of their support behind Isaac and get it going.
Gotcha. I just think Utah's too proud of a program to just cash it in.
They're not. They will not do that. That is not a kind of program. That is not a Kyle Whittingham program. They would not do that.
Too proud. Not only too proud, they're also too good. It's one thing. I get it. You lost a couple of football games. I understand that. But we're not talking about a bad football team here. That's not what this is. You've lost a couple of games. Maybe you weren't as good at quarterback. Injury at quarterback is what you wanted to be. But again, the season is still out there in front of them. And I suspect that they continue to move strong moving forward. So I appreciate you taking the time, Sammy, to talk to us today. Thank you for coming on. First time coming on, but I promise you it won't be the last. So
I'm excited. I love, like I said, I love talking to Utah football. So I'm always here for it.
I appreciate you. And thank you guys again. Remember to comment, like, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. Big 12 Insiders will be back soon. Just make sure you hit the notification bell so you know when all the content's coming out. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for watching the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. This has been a Spirit Street production.